Okay, moving on. Climate warming are threatening the existence of polar bears. There are now about 600 polar bears in the western Hudson Bay, one of the most threatened of the 20 populations of the white beast. Now, that's about half the number of 40 years ago. More about it in our next report.
Searching for polar bears where the Churchill River dumps into Canada's massive Hudson Bay, biologist Geoff York scans a region that's on a low-fat, low-ice diet because of climate change, and it's getting lower on polar bears. His latest study, with a team of scientists from various fields, shows that if the world does not cut back more on emissions of heat-trapping gases, we could lose the population of polar bears entirely by the end of the century. More than 600 polar bears are threatened in this changing gateway to the Arctic, where warmer waters melt ice earlier in the year. For what grows, lives and especially eats in this region, it's like a house's foundation shifting. When the sea ice melts earlier, it warms the overall water temperature and it changes algae that blooms, which changes the plankton that feed on the algae, which then changes the fish all the way up the food web to beluga whales, seals and polar bears.
This is a region of the Arctic where sea ice forms every year, but also melts every year. Other parts of the Arctic have sea ice year-round, but southern Hudson Bay, being quite a bit further south than other regions, has this annual cycle of sea ice freezing and melting.
The polar bear is the king of fat. When mother polar bears nurse their young, what comes out in the milk is 30% fat. Fewer of these cubs are being born or survive the first year.
When you hear scientists talk about decreased survival, decreased cub survival, declining populations, it's often this exact piece of it that we're talking about. It's energetics or lack of energy negatively impacting the success of moms. And that can take multiple forms. It can mean mothers not being able to implant and become pregnant because they're not in good enough body condition.
Polar bears feed like crazy in the ice-covered spring. They use the sea ice platforms as bases to hunt their favorite prey, eat fat seals, especially baby seals. According to National Snow and Ice Data Center, sea ice in the Arctic has shrunk by about 13% per decade since 1979. While Arctic sea ice hits its fourth lowest extent on record for late August, in western Hudson Bay, unusual winds have meant longer-lasting ice than usual. But it's a temporary and very localized respite. A peer-reviewed study this year looked at the sea ice levels and climate simulations based on different levels of carbon pollution. The researchers found that once Earth warms another 1.3 or 1.4 degrees Celsius from now, the polar bears likely will cross that point of no return. Bureau Report WION World is One.